Welcome to our webinar, Data Storytelling for Fixing Project Portfolio Visibility, How to Get Real-Time Insights for Better Decisions. If you enjoy this topic, please explore our YouTube channel for more videos and follow us on LinkedIn to be in the know for event announcements and speaking engagements. Presenting today's discussion is OnePlan's Jim Patterson.
Welcome all. This is a good topic because it's one of the primary reasons that people come to talk to us here at OnePlan. They're having trouble with gaining that kind of portfolio visibility they need in order to be their best. And we provide mechanisms for them to be able to do that. So we're going to talk today about how and in what aspects we might be able to fix the project portfolio visibility problem and get you more information in real time at the right time so you can use it better for decision support. So let's talk about some of the issues that people face. Some of the challenges as organizations often do struggle with gaining good holistic across the board project portfolio visibility. There's a number of different challenges, and this is by no means exhaustive, but it's the common ones that we see. Lack of centralized data and tools. Where is the one place where I can go to get that particular information? And we'll talk a little bit more today about disconnected tools and such, and it doesn't have to be a rigid process necessarily. But if there's no single source of truth, then we have trouble getting the information we need to make decisions based on complete information. And then as a result, we end up oftentimes with poor communication and siloed teams, meaning there's different standards, different tools, unawareness across the different teams cross-functionally. It makes it hard for anybody to see the big picture and see how others might be impacting them. Inconsistent reporting and metrics. If we're doing things each our own way in different areas, there may be no key performance indicators that are common across them all. By the time we aggregate those things, maybe the data becomes stale, outdated, or inaccurate. And then if we have to manually pull this stuff together, that is a load and a labor-intensive way and time-consuming way of doing things. And then also, when we do things very manually and transcribe data, it's prone to errors. And once again, we have no real-time visibility in all aspects, whether it be project progress, whether it be risks we're facing, dependencies that might be impacting us, etc. And then there's the resource dimension. This is probably the second biggest thing people come to us for is, how do I get a handle on resource capacity planning and understanding, what we have, what we're doing, and what we can take on. And having the lack of visibility into team workloads across will lead to over allocation or underutilization, depending on what your situation in the industry is. But it's difficult to forecast if we don't have a comprehensive lens into all of these things. And then one of the challenges with getting common portfolio visibility is resistance to change. I think one of the things that we'll talk about today is the uniqueness that OnePlan has in order to kind of bridge the gap on that resistance of people resisting new tools or processes. Maybe they can keep the tools that they're already using and still get portfolio visibility. It doesn't have to be one single monolithic tool. And also, leadership maybe not seeing the value because you're going through big manual efforts to get them the data that they want, and maybe they don't realize that there's a better way to do that. Difficult in identifying risks and dependencies. Once again, lack of visibility. And then no real-time or predictive insights. We'll talk today about the leveraging of AI to help with more predictive analysis, or maybe giving us insights that we might not easily come to the conclusions on if we were doing it with our own human intellect. And the other part of this is that if the information is coming to us in a more real-time fashion, hopefully our decisions are more proactive, taking action while we still have the ability to impact the situation, as opposed to reactive after the fact. And maybe any action we take at that point may not have the impact that we would have hoped because it's too late. So hopefully we can change that paradigm. So why is all this important? Well, it's really about better decision making and strategic alignment, making sure we're working on the right things and that we stay that way, because things change very rapidly within your organization. So improved decision making is what we want to get to here, so that leaders can make informed choices, right, based on the data that's at hand. Resource optimization, be able to allocate resources not only effectively, not only avoiding over allocation and underutilization, but making sure we have them working on the right things that bring the most value and the right outcomes we're looking for and strategically aligned to what the organization wants to do. Then the risk management, having visibility into identifying potential risks early so we can tackle it while we still have the potential to impact it positively. Strategic alignment, making sure we're working on the right things that align with where the organization wants to go. Enhanced collaboration, teams across department. In this age of transformation, we have so many efforts that are cross-functional in their nature, and everybody needs to be rowing in the same direction in order to be successful. So hopefully, if we do this well, we can foster better collaboration and communication across the different units within the organization. A system and a tool does not preclude the need for communication, but it can definitely foster it and enhance it. Also, accountability and performance tracking. With this visibility, organizations can better track performance metrics and hold teams accountable for project outcomes when there's better visibility in that portfolio. And just increased agility. With the visibility we need, we can adapt quickly to changes. So the idea is to be able to adapt and make the change, reprioritize, reassess, and do that in a fast method so that we don't waste time and effort on things that we shouldn't be, and make sure that we're doing the right things or making changes as the market needs changes, our customer needs changes, etc. So this proliferation of tools we talked about, it really gets to be overwhelming in many organizations. And this is actually a sample that came from a client of ours, where if you look at the different capabilities down the left-hand side and the functional organizations across the top, this is just a sampling of the tools that were being used to do these things across. Some in spreadsheets, some were just using email, some were using reporting, some were using specific work or project management tools, manual updates statically and things like PowerPoints. Once again, fosters that type of dysfunction and ineffective ways of doing things that we talked about in the prior slides. And then the way people need to do portfolio management because of the approaches and the methods that they're using. I mean, for the last few decades, people have done traditional project portfolio management in a more waterfall type of fashion. More traditional, governance might be just as little as just some portfolio visibility at its basic level. But, with this striving in the industry to become more responsive, people have undergone these agile transformation journeys, trying to get agile in everything that they do. And that may be possible, but for many organizations, even if you get there, it can be a long journey, multiple years to get there. And ultimately, there's going to be either a period during that journey where you're in this hybrid or adaptive mode, where you're doing some things more waterfall, some things more agile. But the analysts like Gartner and Forrester and such are finding that today, the steady ongoing state that organizations find themselves in tend to be more in that hybrid or adaptive mode. But we have to be able to accommodate those folks who are doing things in an agile fashion, that accommodate those people who are doing things in a more traditional project and waterfallish type of fashion, or bring those things together into a common solution in that more adaptive mode. So in organizations, to do this successfully and get the visibility that we want, the teams need to be able to execute in the ways that are most conducive to the way that they work and the types of work that they're doing. That means some projects and initiatives may be more iterative and more agile. Some may be more waterfall in their nature. Some might be a combination of those. And they may be using different tools. When I said no common single source of truth, we'll talk about the OnePlan story today, where you don't have to have one tool to execute in order to make those things happen and get the visibility that you want. For example, you might have iterative stuff happening in things like Azure DevOps and Jira, where you might be doing more waterfall things and things like Smartsheet or Microsoft Project or their new project for the web/planner. The key there is that we still want them to be able to do the things that they need to do in the way that they need to do them, but leadership still needs the visibility that they need so that they can make good, informed decisions for the business and be able to redirect and course correct as needed, and not waste time, effort, or money on the wrong things. Now, even if everybody was doing things in an agile fashion, we still have needs for leadership. For example, the teams might be looking at all different kinds of metrics to execute. Looking at things like burn-ups and burn-downs and velocity charts and cumulative flow diagrams. And that's all well and good to keep their particular team efforts on track. But leadership at that portfolio or multiple portfolio levels want to be able to see things like indicators, KPIs, financial information, language of the business that they can report to and make decisions on the overall. And we have to meet the needs of all these constituencies if we're going to be successful in this portfolio visibility game. On top of that, there's the whole area of strategic portfolio management strategy. How are we working on the right things and rowing in the right direction to where the organization wants to take us? So our business leaders put together strategic plans, and those may be objectives and key results, or OKRs, and execute on those plans. Having a solution that allows you to actually track and execute on those strategic plans is one thing, but then communicating it to the execution leaders, the portfolio leaders, the project leaders, who basically have to execute on the things that deliver on those strategies. And it doesn't matter what type of work they're doing. They might be doing more professional services work, more agile development for software or product development. Might be a combination of those things, but the key is we need to be looking at where the organization wants to go as we're working and doing these things, let alone selecting what we're going to work on. And then there's assets and technology in our organizations that need to be factored in for us to be successful. So whether it be our enterprise or business architecture elements, our application portfolio, our product portfolio, our current business capabilities, etc., we have to understand, do those things have to be enhanced, modified, tinkered with in order to succeed at these other aspects on strategy and execution that we're talking about. So once again, visibility into all that, into total portfolio visibility in a strategic portfolio management sense is becoming more and more important in the marketplace. So just some overarching recommendations before we talk a little bit about OnePlan. So we need to somehow centralize data and use a unified tool, and we'll talk about it doesn't have to be a monolithic tool. I've already hinted the fact that we can let people use the execution tools and other tools that they need to do the work that they're doing, but we're not precluded from actually getting that portfolio visibility and that single source of truth. Improve communications and break down silos. If we have visibility in a common forum for all this stuff, by default, we'll get that. And also using collaborative platforms in conjunction with our project management and portfolio management and work management, things like Microsoft Teams that allow us to collaborate even further. Many of us in our organizations are using those extensively already. Let's leverage that instead of just replacing it. So everyone has real-time access and can communicate in a very effective way. Standardized reporting and define key metrics. At an organizational level, at the portfolio level for visibility, there should be a standard set of KPIs that you should be reporting to. That doesn't mean at your individual level you might not have your own, depending on the type of work that you do, in addition to that. But the idea is that we should be looking at common metrics and methods as we look at things from an overall organization portfolio management perspective. And automate tracking and reporting. Get rid of all that labor-intensive things that we do to mash up data and manually build reports or PowerPoints and those types of things. Let's have that at our fingertips so we can make real-time decision-making and free up our time to do things that are more high value. And then optimize resource allocation. You need the tool sets to do resource management, track workloads, availability, and capacity. And the idea is to prevent overallocation and balance workloads and make sure that we're putting these resources, our valuable and scarce resources, on the right things. And to get leadership buy-in and encourage a cultural shift. If we can give them the things that they need to make better decisions, we will make the case and show the return. If we can do things in a more cost-effective and labor-saving way, we can show the value. And also just the cultural shift, if we can provide a course where better portfolio visibility is available without people having to abandon the tools that they love at the execution level, we don't have to fight that battle on pulling those tools out of their hands in order to get portfolio management, which has often been the case historically. We have methods now to have you not have to fight that battle. And then just improve risk and dependency management through that visibility, and then implement some AI and predictive insights, and we'll talk about a little bit of that today. Now, there's different tiers of capabilities on portfolio and work management that different parts of the organization may want, or different organizations may want or need. Some are more simple. They just want to do some collaborative work management and just have some visibility into what's being worked on and get status to and from people. In its simplest case, collaborative work management is something that some people need to have, and some of your organization, that may be where they stay. More traditional project portfolio management, where you want portfolios and some visibility and some governance around that, and the ability to execute on your plans within there, maybe all people want to do, and that's great. You know, you want to be able to accommodate that for the parts of the organization that need to do that. But maybe a broad swath that wants to do the full strategic portfolio management approach that we talked about in the earlier slides, potentially maybe at an EPMO level, that is really bridging the gap between senior leadership in the C-suite and the folks that are executing. The needs of that part of it for strategic alignment, including the hybrid, you know, type of pieces for execution, would fall into that. And one of the things that we're proud to say is that OnePlan supports all these tiers or hybrids of these tiers with or without other tools or solutions. OnePlan can do all of this stuff in and of itself, but we provide a path that allows you to not have to abandon solutions and tools that you're already using in your organization. So it does that by providing a single platform, and it gives us the right balance of governance and flexibility. So for example, you know, you might have across the organization, you might have at the PMO level, for example, an enterprise-wide portfolio governance and standards that you promote throughout the organization. And maybe that works for your organization. Maybe that's what the organization needs. And we can do that to ensure consistent policies, processes, and oversight, not only with the things that are being executed, but the intake that's coming and what we're going to choose, and maybe what that process and onboarding of projects and initiatives might be. However, in this modern day and age, especially with more cross-functional transformation efforts that are going on, the ability to have specific portfolio areas that allow specific requirements and variation of those standards for specific departments or business units is really important these days, and have views and workflows and other things that are particular to them allows people to have that flexibility, yet have that standards and governance at the level of which the organization needs, yet still provide the flexibility that's desired. It also then fosters, because we have common visibility, the better ability for us to collaborate with each other horizontally across the organization. And so these hybrid areas of getting the best of both worlds of common shared top-level hierarchy with latitude and flexibility at the lower levels enables both standardization and customization or configuration for the needs of different parts of the organization. Ultimately, if we do this well, it ends up by default meeting the needs of the overall organization. So let's talk about the capabilities of OnePlan that support this. Yes, we have OKRs, the ability to put a strategic plan in place. We have the ability to do the identification of enterprise and business architecture elements that we need to factor into the solution. We have an ideation or innovation portal that allows anyone in the organization or anyone that you give access to provide ideas and requests that can be considered, evaluated for their value, as well as how well they align with the OKRs that the organization is striving for. And the portfolio management pieces, the pieces that allow you to not only select what things that you're going to work on, but they can get that visibility we're talking about here, whether it be traditional list views like you see in this graphic here, or maybe more agile-oriented board views for those more agile-oriented people that have to do things in selections through exercises like program increment or PI planning. And then roadmap views for the product and delivery-oriented people that need to see the same information, but visibility in the way that makes sense for their audience and who they need to deliver this information to. Resource capacity planning, if we don't factor in our ability to deliver resources and whether or not we have the bandwidth to do it, we're setting ourselves up for failure from the outcome. So we need to have that as an important part of the mix. Same thing with finances. If we don't have the funds, we can't necessarily do it. We might have assumptions on an original budget. There might be revised forecasts. There might be actuals that we're tracking. And to be able to have that visibility at any given point in time at the portfolio level is something important to track and manage. And then things change. So as the circumstances on the ground change and the marketplace change, the competitive landscape, the whims and desires and requirements of our internal and external customers can change. How about evaluating alternatives with what if scenario modeling? That's something that OnePlan provides as well. On the execution level, as I mentioned, we can do waterfall plans, work plans, agile plans in a more backlog and sprint-based method. And OnePlan has full capabilities in and of itself. But we found that the easier software for many organizations as they're trying to get this portfolio visibility is to not fight the battle of pulling the execution tools out of their end users' hands if they don't have to. So for example, whether you're using the Microsoft Planner or Project for the Web, Microsoft Project, Smartsheet, Wrike, Monday, Asana, Azure DevOps, Jira, Trello, etc. Having connectors to those tools and have them automatically feed into your portfolio and summarize and roll that data up for portfolio visibility is something that we can accomplish, and we do that with all of our customers. Let alone the issues, risks, and changes and things that we talked about having visibility to. The needs of individual resource managers on the individual efforts that are there that roll up to an overall capacity plan. And one of the keys of getting information from people, instead of having them working in 6 different tools, providing status on the same information in multiple ways, having one central place for that team member to go to see what's on their plate, what's expected of them work-wise, to provide status and comments and progress in that, or even report time on those things, is something that's built into the solution as well. And from this visibility perspective, consistent reporting, we talked about that being something that's needed, right? So having common form and formats that are a natural output of working the system, not having to build them every reporting period, status reporting that comes out of the system, but the ability to put your narratives in, the ability to have dashboards at a portfolio, program, project, or even more detailed level, and have that be a natural output of the process for real-time access for your executives for decision support. And then visualizations on how all this stuff interrelates, whether or not we have enterprise or business architecture elements, strategies that we're aligning with, other efforts within the organization that we're dependent or associated with. See the big landscape or the big picture of that at any given point in time. By having all this, we get to deliver on the outcomes that we're seeking from the initiatives, the projects, and the just overall efforts that we're choosing to embark upon. And then we'll talk about the advent of artificial intelligence. OnePlan has its own AI assistant called Sophia GPT. It's really purpose-built for this, and we'll talk a little bit more in a little bit. But the key is, let's do the right work, select the right things based on the right criteria, aligned with the priorities of the organization, and then give us the mechanisms to execute right and execute well, and then have the visibility we need to course correct and adjust as we go. Now, the integrations I talk about, we're not talking about custom integrations. We're talking about a connector platform that OnePlan provides called OneConnect that actually allows you to connect to all these different project and work management tools, software development or agile tools. Might be your financial or ERP system. It might be your service management tool. It might be your CRM system. The key is these things are all readily available so that we can bring them into the fold on a more automated basis, and once again get de facto visibility on things that we're currently siloed with. So that consistent status reporting, whether it be project-specific status reports or maybe portfolio or program level dashboards and analytics, we can get this reporting at whatever level is needed for the organization in a very flexible fashion. Now, Sophia GPT, AI, some people are still examining how to incorporate this stuff within their organizations. And I would say this, Sophia is purpose-built for strategic portfolio management and related disciplines. It's based on Microsoft's Azure OpenAI language model, and it's not on the open internet like ChatGPT. So you get a bit more of that compliance and security that you're looking for from the Microsoft cloud. But it's purpose-built for this, and not only leverages the large language model that's available to us up there in Azure OpenAI, it's also been thoroughly trained on everything OnePlan, everything about OnePlan, and the strategic and other portfolio management disciplines that it supports. On top of that, in a transactional basis, without learning from the data, it also leverages the data that you provide on the screen in OnePlan to factor that into the response to your prompts to the AI. So we're getting good analysis and recommendations based upon your information, but by no means is your information being absorbed or learned into the overall model. So the key here is to be able to leverage this in the context of what we want to do. And OnePlan, it's available in this blue circle in the lower right. It's always available wherever you're at in the solution, and allows you to call it up and give it prompts at any given point in time. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go forward. So one thing to think about is, if you really want portfolio visibility across the organization, You need to do things across the organization. And we talked about, doing that and the flexibility of having different areas for different parts and departments and business units within this. OnePlan as a platform, though, just think about it as a robust infrastructure with the necessary enterprise security that you're going to need to grant access for capabilities in certain parts of data, certain portfolios, et cetera. But it's built in the Microsoft Cloud for that assurance and compliance and security. It also has pre-built solutions for SPM and the hybrid adaptives and for other aspects of that, right? But you have the ability to configure. It's highly configurable without writing code to build other solutions that you might need if you have other ancillary things that you might want to incorporate into the solution. So there's a flexibility there that meets the needs of specific parts of your organization. The integrations we talked about with the integration platform, but we also have partnerships with other connector capabilities, like with Power Automate from Microsoft or by Zapier, and we're adding others all the time. Workflows and automations and notifications, be able to automate workflows so that we can get things like approvals and notifications and those types of things working through the mix so that we get more seamless collaboration across the tool sets. We talked about the dashboard and reporting that's available both in OnePlan and in things like Power BI or the reporting solution of your choice. And then the AI piece is the intelligence of Sophia GPT. This platform can serve the needs across all parts of your organization. So with that, I thought I would start with a demonstration of a few key capabilities. First, I'll start with the idea of meeting the needs. We have this thing called areas, which I alluded to in the slide that we talked about, that makes sure that the lens that you have as a user is particular to the role that you have in the organization and the things that most interest you. So for example, I might be in the strategic planning office. And by the way, based on security and access and desire, you may or may not see all the things that are in here, but those capabilities are in here. So for example, on the corporate strategy side of things, this might be where the strategies are outlined, and this objective might have, say, key results underneath it. And underneath those key results, then, we can actually, in our hierarchy and our association, say, here's the business capabilities we need to address in order to achieve that objective and key result. Here's the product that we have to deal with. Here's an application that we maybe have to update or modernize in order to get that key result for that objective. And maybe here's a specific project that are there, all the things that are associated with that we need. So once again, we get a common view here, and that lens is flexible as far as what it is that we want to see in that particular area, right? At the end of the day, the ability to go into something like a key result and look at the metrics and the data that you want to keep around that, right? We have flexible forms, so depending on what element we have in the system or what plan type we have, we can look at the data, the metrics that we're tracking. We can even look in here in a tabular format, all the associations that we have with other elements within the system from an enterprise architecture, et cetera. But the key here is we can also look in here and look at the visualization of maybe any predecessors or successors, but also go in here and look at how we are related to other things. So for example, this key result has this project and in here, it has this product, and it has this application that it is affiliated with that we need to address. And this is a simple case. We'll show one a little bit later that's maybe a more complex case, but the key is we always know how these things are related within here and giving us, once again, that visibility as we visualize this type of stuff, right? Same thing holds true, if we go back out to the portfolio of objectives and key results. And if I wanted to just see how the overall objective is aligned and visualized and how it's associated with other things, I can do this from any place in the system. So I can see there's no predecessors or successors, but once again, the runway that I have here of this objective has the 3 key results, each of which have different projects and epics, each of which may be associated with different applications or maybe affiliated with a value stream. In this particular case, whatever elements we put into the system, we can have those associations and visibility around that. Now, if I am a PMO or an EPMO, my focus may be different. My view may be more broad, where I might want to go in here and look at multiple portfolios, where I have portfolios for different parts of the organization. And you can establish your portfolio hierarchy or your primary hierarchy in here, and then look at all the things that are built in around that, different projects, programs, epics, et cetera. And the key is to be able to get the look of this across the entire organization. Now, if I'm more in product management, maybe my focus is more around the product portfolios and the elements around those. And I want to basically look at the different products that we have, the different projects or objectives that are associated with this, or maybe even some incoming ideas that we're considering around those that are affiliated with that. And at any given point in time, this product would give us the ability, outside of what we looked at with the objectives and the key results, a different kind of form that allows us to have different life cycle stages, for example, and the ability to have a product vision canvas and other prioritization, other elements that we want to have, as well as financial aspects for total cost of ownership and work plans, etc. So once again, the flexibility to have the lens that we might want. And the same thing would hold true if I was somebody in charge of, say, application development. I could have my own portfolio with my own requirements, my own needs, but all still rolling up to the overall PMO or EPMO as needed. So the key there is the flexibility in the way we want to look at this thing. And the way we have these flexible views and lenses is that really any manager in your organization can become a portfolio manager of their own in the sphere of which they're responsible for. So with that, let me go to show you another example. And in this, we've got a portfolio with the same portfolio hierarchy. I've got different portfolios for different parts of the organization. We have security that allows me as an overall manager to see all of it, but I may only see the things that I have access to. I could actually break these things out by the portfolio hierarchy of portfolio programs and projects. But in this model, what I wanted to show here in particular was not only the plan types, right, of each of which can have their own requirements and data and forms associated with them, but notice the icons here on the left. This basically is showing me that I am connected to different tool sets. For example, in this data warehouse migration, I'm only connected to a team site for additional content and document content and collaboration capabilities. In this particular case, I am connected with both Teams and with Smartsheet to get the work plan data out of Smartsheet and brought in and folded into the portfolio. We've got Jira. I've got Microsoft Planner, Project for the Web. I've got Microsoft Project Desktop, Project Professional. I've got Monday.com. I've got Azure DevOps. I've got Asana. I've got Rike. All within the same program or portfolio. I might have different constituents or end users that are coming at this with different execution tools is really the point, and the flexibility that we have. Now, you may or may not have this much of a diversity in the number of execution tools you're using, but if you have a lot invested into the thought process and the building of plans in these, we can leverage those and still provide the portfolio visibility that you desire, okay? Now, the views are very flexible for this visibility concept that we have here. I'm in what we call the list view type. And this list view, this portfolio summary is very KPI oriented, got a little bit of financials and a little bit of progress information there, right? But if I go look at this and I say, let me go look at, say, a program financial summary. Now, instead of looking at this by the primary portfolio hierarchy, I might be looking at this by basically, grouping it by other factors. But this particular case, I'm looking at the programs, I'm looking at the elements in there, and something that's more financial intensive, and the KPI specifically focused on finances. Okay. Now, maybe I want to do something that's not program oriented. Maybe I just want a general financial summary. And this is where I might want to group and visualize this in a variety of different slices. In this case, I'm not using the primary hierarchy. In this case, I'm grouping and summarizing this by the actual business unit, okay? So basically, I'm looking at this by business units, financial metrics around that, and the visibility that I need around that. And I can filter and or group by the same parameters that I want. Any data or metadata that I have in here around the system, I can use as a filtering or a grouping parameter. Maybe I'm looking at something more schedule oriented, right? I might come in here and say, what does this look like from a schedule perspective? And I want us to look at how we're doing on schedule health and where we're at timeline wise and all these different things. Once again, a quick transition into the view to see the timelines and the data. Or maybe we're snapshotting data in here and we want to see how we're trending. So we could actually be trending in here and seeing how different metrics are giving us trends and visibility, whether or not we're doing well on budget, whether we're doing well on issues, etc. Here, it gives us an idea of maybe how we're progressing and where we're going to the good, or we're kind of falling back in some of these different areas. And I guess the other part about the flexibility that I just wanted to show here in these list views, or in any of the views for that matter, is let me go to a summary view that allows me to just, go to a base list of, plans that I have within the system. And then I can choose how I want to look at this. So for example, what if I wanted to look at this by, business unit? One, I can then basically say, okay, how many capital planning things do I got going on here? Or maybe I want to look at it by category. And now all of a sudden I've got the projects here and I say, geez, okay, what are the business transformation efforts that I have going on? How are they doing? It doesn't look like I've got quite a bit of red there. Our compliance projects, it looks like we're doing better on that than we are on the business transformation aspects of this. And we can drill into these, any one of these from those particular views. Just basically one more example, I could quickly say, how does this align with the different goals that we have as an organization? So what projects and things do we have that are aligned with customer satisfaction versus grow the business, et cetera? So once again, we could go ad infinitum on this, but I really want to go the visibility and flexibility into that visibility that we have, okay? For those of you more agile oriented, we have the board views. And in these board views, I can look at these things in a variety of ways. In this case, I'm looking at board by state, proposed, active, closed, on hold, things that I might still have in a backlog that I might want to drag into here. I might set limits on budget for how many things we want in those different things, and I can see where we're exceeding on the active side of things. We're quite a bit over the budget that we have for what we want in an active state. It's over the $10 million that we have there. We have the ability to do columns like you see here, swim lanes. We could color by different things. In this case, we're coloring by the overall status of that in here. And the totals could be financial, it could be effort, it could be a number of different things as we go through that. If I go look at another example of this, right? I can come in here to the board and let me go and say board by state with an effort constraint. So instead of dollar constraint, let me take a look at it this way. So now I've got the hours, right? And whether or not I'm exceeding the hours that are allocated within here in the effort in this by looking at this by that way. I might look at it by, let's just say goals by program. And this one's interesting because now it's going to interject in here the concept of the swim lanes or the lanes. So now I've got the goals across the top, how those things are aligned within those, and then basically here are the ones that are the lanes by program, the Agile Development Program, the Asset Replacement Program, etc. And I can actually go into here at any given point in time, even though this is a board with just cards that have limited data on them, at any given point in time, I can come in here and look at the data and the details around any one of those elements. I can either just pop out a quick edit panel to get that information to see how we're doing on that, maybe look and see why this is red and it looks like it's off track because the schedule's off. Looks like we're doing okay on issues and effort and financials, but it's the schedule that's making this red for us. But the idea is you can get to that at any given point in time from this particular view. Now, the roadmap views, once again, very similar, but it might be just a different perspective you're taking. So here I'm looking at a roadmap that has swim lanes by the business unit, and it's color coded by the overall status, whether it's red, yellow, green on the status. All well and good. Very easily, I could take that same view and I could just say, let me change it from business unit to say category. And now I'm looking at by the different categories of projects rather than by business unit. And maybe I'll change the color on this thing to show it to me by financial health. And now I can see which ones we're running into financial iffiness on. We got a few yellow ones in there on how we're doing on the finances. Or maybe on how we're doing on effort health. Are we over or underspending our resource budgets on this? And I can look at that from a different perspective. So once again, flexible roadmaps, and you can save as many different views, both system-wide views and personal views in here, so they can be particular the way you want to look at the world. Okay. So let me just go in here real quick, and if I go into the list view and I go into this portfolio summary, if I go in here real quick and I look at this, this might be an example where I might want to do something with, say, Sophia. And I can open up Sophia in here and she can ask how I can help you today. And by the way, you can pin recurring questions and prompts that you might want to ask into this pop-up at any given point in time. But let me just go into the portfolio summary and ask her a question and just say, I just want a general assessment in this particular case. Can you examine the trends and provide a summary of the current state of my portfolio? We'll see what it comes up with. So it's given me overall portfolio health, business unit analysis and how we're doing and what's the status on the things in the business units, some notable observations that they have on the assessment here, overall financial and schedule health, and it's giving me some assessment very rapidly that I can use in helping me make decisions as I go through. So once again, just some simple analysis that it's giving us along the way. That's just one example. If I go to a particular project in here, I just would say this: whatever we have within the specific plans, initiatives, or projects is all going to roll up into the portfolio by default. And if we look at this for this particular project, I've got life cycle stages, I got metadata and characterizations and categorizations here. I got business case narratives that would have come over here from the request or the idea potentially as we go through. We can actually use Sophia to help us write these things, right? And I could ask it to help me write a description. This description was actually written by Sophia in rich text format so that we can use those things and help us get a starting place for the narratives we have to write without having to start from scratch. And all the different detailed data that we might want to have in here, like prioritization mechanisms, how we're doing on progress and effort, and how we're doing on our KPIs, et cetera. But these forms for each plan type that's in here are fully configurable, okay? If I go to the work plans themselves, we have the ability within the work plan. In this case, I'm in a particular planning view for this particular work plan, and I'm in a schedule. And as I expand this out, I can take a look at the full plan. I can look at it with or without a Gantt chart representation for that particular plan. And I can have different views for the plan, just like we did at the portfolio, some that are more cost-oriented, more effort-oriented, more critical path-oriented, et cetera. But one of the key things I wanted to show here was the fact that we have the ability, now this plan is not connected to any other tool, but we've enabled for this environment the ability to connect to all these different tools should you want to grab and have it be based on a schedule from another tool. And I'll show you an example of that as we go through. So once again, as we look through here, I can look at the schedule, and it could either be built right here, and it could be built here from templates. We basically can come in here and insert a template. And if we try to insert a template, we have templates that you can store, personal templates. You can look at online templates. You can import from things like CSVs or other OnePlan templates or other existing plans, or you can actually have AI and Sophia help you create a plan. So once again, all kinds of ways that you can start the plan with the help of AI or with templates. If you have, say, a backlog work type that's more agile focused, we have different work types in here, just like we have plan types for the portfolio. We could also connect this to an agile tool like a Jira or an Azure DevOps the same way. This one is not connected, but you have the option to do that rather than building it here within OnePlan. Though it's fully capable of doing it right directly within OnePlan. We also have the ability to do the resource planning here so that we can plan in terms of hours or FTEs or full-time equivalents or percentages of allocation, and we can track the financials in here. All of this data summarizes and rolls up to the portfolio. Once again, automatic visibility as you roll up into those elements, okay? And I guess the other key piece is here, we're in a specific project. Once again, I can look at the reporting. How about a project status report that gets automatically generated each reporting period such that it builds the elements in there we already want, grabs the data you already need, but then lets you put the narrative in for each status reporting period. Having that save all that time and effort and actually save snapshots of each of the status reports that go in over time. And so we can snapshot that data and do the trending that we showed you earlier on. Now people can just come in here and look at the status report that you want to give them, or you can put it out to other audiences in forms of PDF or Word, or just send it out in an email. So the key there is once again, automating that portfolio and project visibility that we lack sometimes without a lot of manual lifting. I would say this, On the project level, you could actually do, other reporting on things like a dashboard that's project specific. So for example, we may come in here and go look at, in this particular case, we're going to look at a Power BI report. But this particular case is plan specific, all about the overall plan, whether it be the financial aspects of that, whether it be the resource aspects of that, whether it be the schedule aspects of that. And we have the ability now to do individual dashboards right within OnePlan itself. Now we're showing the Power BI right within here, but the beauty here is these reports are now also accessible directly from within Power BI. So if you have other parties or executives that don't get hands-on within the tool itself, they can access the same reports from outside of OnePlan directly at any given point in time to make those decisions. Okay, and then the process of that visualization that we talked about earlier on, that's one where here now, I did it before from a strategy specific orientation, right? But in this particular case, now from a project, I can see, let me refresh this. So this project feeds back into all these different key results, which in turn feeds back to all these objectives. And we have to factor in these products and applications and business capabilities that we need to look at. So once again, and if I'm looking at things that I'm dependent on and say, maybe this isn't looking so well, I can actually get my finger on the pulse and drill through it, or pop out a snapshot of the data regarding this at any given point in time. So once again, the collaboration and full awareness of what's going on around me is always available to me at any given point in time. Okay. And I would say this, as we back out to the portfolio, anything that we want to do about connecting. So let's say I just go into this Azure DevOps project, and I can drill from the portfolio without having to drill into the whole project into any specific aspect of that. So now I'm just going to drill right into the work plan. And this particular project is being managed in an agile fashion. So we're using a backlog work type in here. But as opposed to before where I showed you the potential for being connected, this is a connected system where I'm showing that it's actively connected to Azure DevOps. And if I'm an Azure DevOps user and I want to get to that, I can actually see where it's connected to and where it's pulling those backlog items from into that backlog work plan. So this particular IT Azure DevOps project has child elements and child elements within those, and those are the backlog elements that we're pulling in, and you can configure what you want to pull in from here. But the beauty of this too is that you can also access the OnePlan data from within here. So for example, the things that Azure DevOps doesn't do, like in portfolio management or the My Work or whatever it might be, you can access that from right within here within Azure DevOps without ever leaving Azure DevOps. And as I look here and I go back to see the connected, not only is the whole plan connected, you can see the individual work items that are connected, and you can link through to a particular user story or feature or anything in Azure DevOps at any given point in time. And OnePlan's OneConnect updates these things automatically so that you do not, as an end user, have to remember to synchronize these things. It will go and get that data on a schedule that you basically determine. Frequently, people do it hourly, a few times a day, whatever meets the needs of their organization. Okay. The other piece that I wanted to show is the resource planning visibility. So we talked about the importance of resource capacity planning. And with the importance of resource capacity planning, we've got to be able to know, do we have the ability to do this? And I can look at this in terms of hours, percentages, full-time equivalents. Let me go look at this in full-time equivalents. This is a summary information. And then on the developer side, it's telling me that, I have a plan that needs just under 10 FTEs, and I only have a capacity of 7. And then I would submit to you, if I had this kind of visibility all the time, I wouldn't maybe have this severe an overallocation. But for the purposes of demonstration, I can look at the different developers, and I can look at which particular developers, like Toby Stevens, who might be overallocated in all the things that he's on and the things I might want to take him off of, right? I can also take a look at what do we have still assigned to generic developers that I need to put a name to and figure out who's going to do this work. Once again, common visibility into all that so I can make good decisions. So whether it's an overallocated resource or what have you, I might come in here and say, let me try to find a candidate to replace that generic developer. And I can see here on the developer side of things that I might have some people who I could select here to take on that role and make that replacement right here as I balance my resources across this. So once again, all good information and also good resource allocation that we can go and reconcile through this process. The last thing I think I'll cover, given the time that we have here today, is the modeler. And I would say this. Within that modeler, the visibility and the ability to evaluate alternatives is very key in this fast-moving age that we live in. So for example, if I come into the modeler and I go into a particular model, and by creating a model, we can determine which plans and potential plans we want to include in the model for evaluation. In this particular model, we've selected about 41 plans we'd like to be able to do in order to make that happen. And I haven't done a scenario yet, so there's no scenario there done. But I might want to look at this thing and say, all right, if I wanted to do all this stuff, right, it would basically take, you know, just under $20 million for me to do it. On the resource side of things, do I have the capacity to do this stuff? And I might say that, you know, there's a lot of red and over allocation in here, which means I really can't do this plan as it sits. So I'm going to have to do some evaluation and selection here. So one of the things I might do is create a scenario. In this case, I created a $10 million scenario, and it could be a combination of things. Things that you select based on priority or other parameters that you have, and things that you don't select to put in there to fit within the parameters. We can also take a look, and we can possibly even stage things such that we can drag things in and out of a Gantt chart, for example, and basically go in here and say, maybe this proposed project, maybe what we should do is basically delay this out until a later point in time, right? And drag that out and do that at a later point in time, and then save that as the scenario on the timing and the staging of that. But ultimately, when we come to that scenario and we save that scenario, we can start looking at and say, all right, what's the financial impact of what we've selected here? Well, I can see now that I'm under the 10 million, and I might even have a little room for about a little bit more in there to put into that by selecting another project. I could also look at the resource impact and basically take a look at that and say, oh, it looks like this plan's a little more doable. I only have some slight over allocations there, so I may have the resourcing to be able to do that. I might also then look at, you know, the alternatives of another scenario. Maybe saying, well, what if I could get $15 million? What could I do? Well, now, if I look at that scenario, what was determined is that I could actually do 25 projects if I had $15 million. And I could look at the parameters around all that, but I could also do a comparison analysis here and say, all right, this is what it's going to take. I could do 26 versus 20 versus 20. I can actually go in and say, all right, for $10 million, I'll get $23 million of estimated benefit. But if I got another $5 million in benefit, I could get maybe another, a budget, I can get about another $12 million in benefit. Maybe it's worth me trying to find the funding to make that happen because the value and the return is there that I can get there if I could possibly do it. And I can also look at things like, you know, our visualizer in a different context here. Our visualizer might tell us out of this scenario, here's what we selected, and here's the predecessors and successors that are not in the mix. Are they things that we have to really consider to put in there, or are we overlooking something? And also the traditional bubble charts that you might have seen in portfolio analysis before, where we can say, all right, on the prioritization versus benefits, and you can choose what the axes are here, but higher priority elements, the different levels of benefit, and seeing which projects are in here and which ones are selected, but also be able to interject what hasn't been selected and determine other things we should reconsider based upon how they sit with the prioritization mechanism there. So once again, a lot of things that we can do for what if analysis in making sure that we're choosing the right things and we course correct as we go through. Go back to the slides. And just say there's sample use cases for AI, and the focus here was portfolio visibility, so I didn't go heavy on the AI today, but I just wanted to let you know that we had it here. But some of the use cases that Sophia addresses today, and we're expanding this all the time, is strategic planning, portfolio optimization, work management, risk assessment, resource allocation, investment forecasting. And so on the strategic planning side, you might go in here and do things like analyze data to identify patterns and opportunities and risks, and it will analyze like we did before and ask, what's this assessment, and actually do this. And we have some recordings in here that would allow us to say, all right, what are the answers on those? Given the time frame, I won't go through that, but I'm just going to go through the possible scenarios, and this is by no means exhaustive. On the portfolio optimization, I might want to provide a summary of the portfolio data, and this is kind of like what I did live in the software to say, what does it assess about the overall health of the portfolio? I might take a budget plan on the ideas and ideation that we have in here and basically look at maybe what projects we should select based on criteria and dollar volumes. I might look at work management and just create a new project plan based upon just an idea and some narrative, and let it create some project plans that lead us through a wizard to do that. Risk identification, be able to have it identify some risks, suggest risks, we'll put in a risk log so we can monitor them. Resource capacity planning, help me build a resource plan based on its knowledge of the type of project that it is, and then even ask it the question, how many resources am I short? A lot of red in here. What resources do I need to hire or contract, and how many of each kind? Help it tell me those types of things and where I might be short. Looking at the financial data from the financial plan and comparing what can be inferred from that. What trends is here? What things are about to maybe bite us that we need to worry about? And even the communication, help me write a summary to my email to my manager about the status of the project. Be able to go in here and be able to look at this and say, based upon the knowledge it already has about the project, write a summary email for me. And once again, this whole idea of not starting from a blank canvas every time we have to write narratives. And once again, it's writing it in email format and giving me all the things that I need, like the objectives and the status elements and the metrics that someone might be interested to about this project. So with that, let's just talk about a summary and next steps. I think, this whole idea of portfolio visibility is critical in organizations. And there's a lot of reasons why things are fragmented today and it's hard to get there. And that manually matching this up is not a way to do it. And automation and having a common repository and source of truth for this, even if we're pulling data from other systems, provides a lot of value to the organization. And we can take that manual effort that we've been putting towards those things and redirect them to more high value activities. So the idea is to have more timely information for better decision support and better decisions, and hopefully more success at the end of the day. We do this for a living, so PPM and all variations of that are things that we live and breathe. It's not a sideline for us. It's not just a module in what we do. And we get recognized by Microsoft, by Gartner, by Forrester, and by Infotech for the things that we're doing as thought leaders. We also offer free trials. So if you want to try this out, you can get a free trial, and you can get complimentary assistance from OnePlan representatives if you would like to get the most value out of that trial. So go to OnePlan Solutions, oneplan.aa/solutions to get that trial. We'd love to engage with you, whether it be a trial, a roadmap workshop that's free to understand what it would take to get you from point A to point B, maybe a more detailed demo. I was very high level and generalized today. Just reach out to us. Don't be bashful. We love to engage with our customers and prospective customers. Reach out at contact@oneplan.ai or research us at www.oneplan.ai. So with that, we've used a full hour, and I'd like to thank you for your time you've invested in us today. OnePlan, that central hub, that central visibility in your portfolio, we call that the power of one. So please do engage with us. We'd love to see how we can help you, regardless of where you are on your journey. Have a great day.